I'm Professor Rad, and in today's video, we're going to be putting whole numbers in order from least to greatest, or from smallest to largest. So there are a few different ways that you can think about this. So we're going to work through two examples to practice, whichever technique's going to end up working best for us. So in example 20, I have a table with lots of different information about cars and gas and things like that. So in the first row here, it says the average price of a car. So we have, these are average prices for cars in different years. So like in 2000, the average price of a car was $21,047. In 2004, it was $22,068, and so on. So we can see in each of these years that have been provided, the average price of a car. We also have the average price for a gallon of gas in each of these years. Wow, it really shot up from 2004 to 2008, huh? And then we have our average gas mileage in this last row here. And this gas mileage is being measured in MPG, which is miles per gallon. So for this problem, they just tell us to write the average car prices in order from least to greatest. So they want us only to focus on this first row where it says the average price of car. And we want to write those prices in order from smallest to largest. So I think the first thing I'm going to do on this problem is I'm going to write out those numbers just in a list. That way I don't have to keep referring back to the table, and it's going to kind of declutter the information, if that makes sense. So I'll have $21,047. That was our first one here. Then we have 22,068, 23,429, 25,552, and 25,449. So as I'm writing these out, one of the things that I noticed is that they all are the same length. So they all have digits in the thousands period, and then they have digits in the ones period. So with whole numbers, how long a number is going to give you an indication of how big the number is, if it's size. So what I'm going to do is I'm really going to think of this 21,000. I'm just going to think of that maybe as like 21. And then I can think of this 22,000 as just like 22. So this way it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to break down these numbers and think of them as smaller numbers, so I don't have to process as much information. So I'm going to ignore all this stuff on the right and just look at what I've got highlighted in pink. We have 21, 22, 23, 25, 25. So actually these numbers pretty much seem like they're in order so far. 21 is smaller than 22, which is smaller than 23, which is smaller than 25. So because these last two numbers are the same, they're both 25, I'm going to leave them off on their own for a minute, but these other numbers are all set in order. Since 21, for example, is smaller than 22, 21,000 is going to be smaller than 22,000. And since 22 is smaller than 23, 22,000 is going to be smaller than 23,000. So these are all locked in place, so let's keep them as just our regular color here. Now these two numbers both have 25 in the thousands place. So I'm going to have to move over to the ones period to compare these numbers instead. So let's go ahead and look at what numbers are in the ones period for these two numbers. So this first number, we have 552 in the ones period. And in the second number, we have 449. So 400 is going to be smaller than 500. So 449 is going to be a little bit less than 552. So these two numbers are in the opposite order that I want them to be in. This 25,552 is actually the bigger of the two numbers. So I'm going to list the 25,449. And then I'm going to put the 25,552 afterwards. And there we go. Now all of the car prices have been listed in order from least to greatest. So the smallest was $21,047. Then we have $22,068, $23,429. And again, these first three were pretty straightforward because we have 21, 22, 23. And then the last two, they shared 25 in the thousands period. So we had to move over to the ones period to compare. So we had 25,449 and then 25,552. Okay, so since 400 was smaller than 500, that's why it went into this order. Okay, let's go ahead and look at an example where maybe the numbers are not all the same length. So we have various lengths to the questions, or to the numbers, sorry. Okay, so here we've got a bunch of numbers. And again, we're going to put these numbers in order from least to greatest, so from smallest to largest. Once again, when we're comparing whole numbers, we can use the length to guide us when we put these numbers in order. So for example, I noticed that 25 is the only two-digit number on my list, right? 250 has 3 digits. This one's got more, bigger, bigger, and bigger. So because 25 is the only number that has 2 digits, that's going to be our smallest one. So let me strike through that and write it on my list. Okay, and I crossed it out because we already used it. Next, I'm going to look at the 3-digit numbers. So we have 2 of those. We have 250 and we have 173. So I can do the same thing that we did in the last example when we compared the thousands period. So for these 2 numbers that are 3 digits long, I can compare the digit that's in the hundreds place first. So this one is 200 something, while this one is 100 something. So because 1 is smaller than 2, 100 something is going to be less than 200 something. So the next number I'm going to put in my list is the 173, and then the 250 is going to be after that, since 1 is smaller than 2, so 100 is smaller than 200. I'm going to go ahead and cross this one out because we used it. And then let me cross this one out as well. There we go. Kind of moving our way to the middle here. The rest of these numbers are pretty large. This one is 2,000 something. Then we have 25,000 something. And then we have 2,000 something again. So I'm going to focus on these 2 that were the 2,000 somethings. So let me make these a different color just so they stand out a little bit more so we can focus on them. So I'm going to be looking at these 2 pink numbers. Both of these have 2,000. Just like in the last example, we had 2 numbers that started 25,000. So because these both start with 2,000, we have to look at the numbers that are in the hundreds or in the ones period instead. So this one in the ones period is 500. And on the other number, we have 431. So since 4 in 400 is smaller than the 5 of 500, this 2,431 is going to be a little bit smaller than the 2,500. So I'm going to list my 2,431 before I list the 2,500. So we can see even though these 2's were the same, in the next place value, 4 was a little bit smaller than 5. So that's how we're going to list it with the 4 first. That means these 2 numbers are done. So we can cross those out. And then we're only going to be left with this 25,000. So since this is our last number, that one should be the biggest. And we can see it's the biggest because here we have 25,000 and the previous number was only 2,000. So 25 is definitely bigger than 2. So 25,000 is going to be bigger than 2,000. So there we go. That's going to be it for example 21, putting numbers or whole numbers of different lengths in order. Now, it's important, a few things have been going on that are important to recognize. So right now, I'm stressing that we're comparing whole numbers because when we go to compare decimal numbers, we'll have similar techniques, but they will be a little bit different. So knowing the type of number you're working with is going to change potentially the strategy you use to solve the problem. The other thing that I did is as I wrote these numbers, I spent some time making that formatting because I wanted to make sure the ones places were all lined up. That helps me to see the lengths of the numbers and also to compare things like the hundreds places more easily because they line up with each other. So it's helpful when you're creating a list of numbers, especially if you're going to be comparing them, to make sure that the ones places are all lined up, because then you can compare the digits in the other places more easily. This is also a little bit of foreshadowing because it's going to be helpful for us to write numbers this way when we do things like add them or subtract them and so on. So it's not wrong if have them all lined up on the left or write them horizontally, but writing them in this way is going to help me out in the long term. So I'm going to start practicing that now. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. We've put some whole numbers in order. In the next video, we're going to be laying some key definitions that will help us to put decimals in order in the video after that. So I hope this video helped you put whole numbers in order from least to greatest. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.